Hello and welcome to a live deprogram with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. Hope you had a great weekend. Today is Monday, July 29th, and we have a couple of different topics queued up. I would be remiss if I didn't start with talking a little bit about the Olympics and the ceremony that we saw at the opening ceremony, what we saw there. And then we're going to get into a little bit of Kamala Harris stuff today, and specifically white women, woke white women and woke white women who are racist, who say they are racist, who admit they are racist, but fail to see, I think, exactly how their racism operates. We're going to look at some of video footage from some of these women. If it's your first time here, this is a show we do where we try and illuminate what my old religion, my old belief system, woke, really is. It is a religion. And we try and help people better understand it. And especially for people who are on the fence and are trying to get out of that cult that I was in, this is the show for you. I hope you'll stay. If you have questions about woke, if you even if you kind of have a negative reaction to some of the things I say, or you don't agree with them, we hope you'll stay and you'll contribute to the chat. Everyone in the chat, I would have to say, is pretty civil. Every once in a while, that's not the case, but for the most part, if you disagree, people are going to be pretty civil to you, as long as you're civil to them. Don't be a jerk. You can disagree without being a jerk. So welcome. And if you are a regular viewer, there are many ways to support the show. If you like Deprogrammed, you can do so here at YouTube by becoming a member. You can leave a super chat during a stream. You can go to Patreon, Locals, or Subscribe and you can contribute a certain amount per month, whatever you're interested and able to do. Even $1 a month makes you a member, and we appreciate all the contributions. If you're not able to do that, sharing the show, leaving comments helps our algorithm and helps the show get out to more people. So I appreciate that. Okay, let's get started. Oh, I want to say a quick thank you to my friend, Mary Lee at church. She gave me a snood. Look at this. I've always wanted a snood. I just want more reasons to say snood. And I love it. I want to get multiple colors. It's just she got these at Ren Fair. I'm sure some of the knitters and crocheters in the chat are like, "Oh, I have a snood. I make my own." I bet you make your own snoods. I just want to find lots of reasons to say snood. My husband and I were laughing. We were thinking of would it be funny to do a comedy, like, country song with, like, or a smooth jazz song where it's like, "Turn down the lights, take off your snood." No one I don't know anyone that's done lyrics with the word snood, but you could rhyme it with mood, like, "Get in the mood." There's lots of things you could rhyme it with. So, uh, anyway, thank you, Mary Lee, for the snood. See, there's so many funny puns. John said, "Did Keri just say send snoods?" Yeah, snoods are always welcome. It's such a funny word. Okay. Okay, we're getting into the topic. So, let's get started. So, the Olympics opened in France, in Paris, and you may have missed the fact that this was happening. I did. There's been so much in the news. There's been so much crazy stuff happening not the least of which is President Trump survived an assassination attempt, which it seems like the media has just completely forgotten that happened, and not just forgotten that it happened. They're trying to sow propaganda and distrust into the minds of the public, which is evil. But that happened, and then Biden dropped out of his own accord and was replaced without an election, without democracy, was replaced by Kamala Harris on the ticket. So that's been a lot in the news a lot. And so with all that happening, I forgot the Olympics were coming up. Maybe some of you did too. But boy, I know they're happening now because social media has been full of commentary and observations about the opening ceremonies. So a couple things. I'm not going to show the video clips because they are very litigious and censorious. The Olympics organizers, they are going after and copyright striking anyone who shows video footage of the opening ceremonies. Some of the clips that I had lined up no longer exist anyway because they took them down. I know Billboard Chris had shared some clips of the ceremonies, and they're going in and copyright striking, and they're even removing them from X. And so we're not going to show the video footage. We're going to show some photographs, and I'll tell you what I did see in case you didn't catch it. One of the things I saw was that some parents were talking about how, they tuned into the Olympics with their kids, excited to watch this international event that's supposed to be about excellence in sportsmanship, excellence in sports, and it's this global event that's about unity and coming together for something positive and joyful and merit-based, and um, many of them were shocked at what they saw, and they had to quickly turn it off because they had kids in the room. There were the opening ceremony was sort of what I would come to expect from the culture that we live in now, with the dominant religion that we live under now, which is woke. It was a woke smorgasbord. There was a camera at one point following a scantily clad drag queen, a bearded man, but he was a bearded woman, right? Like dressed as a woman and dancing in a provocative way towards the camera, crawling like a stripper, crawling towards the camera down the catwalk, down the runway towards the camera with his full-on beard and his lady dress. And there were kids there, and there were kids watching. And it's look, it's no more appropriate for anyone tuning in from the left. I see what you guys say to me on Twitter all the time. You have no idea who you're talking to. You think you do, and you make a lot of assumptions. But um, I used to work in my old life. I worked in entertainment. I worked with comedians, and um, I worked with a couple of drag performers and also with burlesque performers, and I produced very large shows in New York and San Francisco with some of the country's best drag queens and burlesque performers and comedians, and we did shows in between New York and San Francisco as well. And I still have a lot of I still am a fan of a lot of those performers. uh, there are drag queens who will tell you, maybe you don't know this, if you are in that leftist bubble, you don't know this. There are drag queens like Katie Demure who will tell you the truth on camera, who will say, "Why are you bringing children to my shows? Drag is not for children any more than burlesque is for children, any more than, taking a kid to a strip club is appropriate. It's not appropriate. It's adult entertainment. It's sexualized, sexually charged entertainment at its very nature, at its very core. Yes, it's got comedy too. So does burlesque. They include both. It's for adults. Um, so don't I know you might be tempted, but don't come into my comments trying to drag explain to me. You have no idea who you're talking to. I'll just leave that there. And maybe you should get outside of your bubble and meet some drag queens who are based, who will tell you the truth that you're kind of a perv if you're bringing kids to their show. So the Olympics, a lot of people watching with their families didn't know they were going to get a dose. A lot of normies didn't know they were going to get a dose of this sexualized performance with their kids they're watching, and had to turn it off. In addition to the bearded lady that I mentioned who was dancing in a sexually provocative way and crawling across the floor, there was also this scene recreating the Da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper. And they pulled out and they had, I mean, it's very artfully done. They had all these different drag queens and an obese model in the center. And what this is I'll say like the broad strokes of what this is. This is what I see and automatically see through the lines what this is when I look at it. This is think about where this happened. First of all, this is on the international stage. This is a ceremony. It's a cultural ceremony. And think about what values, what religion, what faith is being promoted here. This is a woke ritual. This is a woke ceremony. It's the woke religion up on top there. They're celebrating the fact that they are the dominant religion in the West. In addition to that, they could have just had a woke ceremonial display like the drag queen dancing with the beard. They could have just done that. And it still would have been a woke religious display on an international stage at a ceremony, a ceremonial event, a woke religious display. But They went a step further, and on top of it, they're sort of showing this is we are showing the religion that we've conquered. We are in their minds that they've conquered. We are pillaging and we are holding up our trophies and we are rubbing it in the face of Christianity that we are now the dominant religion. And we're doing so by mocking this scene of the Last Supper. We're very on the nose about what we're doing. We're very on the nose about the fact that we are the dominant faith. And it's like holding up the head, taking a trophy of the enemies that you've conquered as a tribe. This is their trophy. This is them saying, "Look at it. We own the world. We're the number one faith culturally." That's what this is. Now it doesn't make me some people I saw are like, "Why are Christians so angry about this?" Or "Why are they so offended?" or what have you. Um, somebody who I respect a lot who was in my comments was like, "Why are Christians having a cow?" I don't quite see it as Christians having a cow. They're just making observations. Everybody makes observations on social media. This is a very obvious observation to make. And are there some people angry and offended? Yes, I've seen that a lot. This didn't make me angry. What I get angry about is the woke cult. I get angry at their behavior. This was a ceremonial display. This was them celebrating on a international stage being the dominant religion in the West now. What I That's sick and gross, and it makes me sad and worried for France, honestly, and for the West. But it doesn't make me angry like their behavior does. That's when I get like what they do in this religion. They sacrifice children. They mutilate children. They cut their breasts off. They cut their penises off. They construct Frankenstein fake body parts and, sew this onto children. Um, they cut parts of their arm off to make these fake penis tubes. They sterilize kids for life. That's this is an evil belief system. This is an evil cultural display. The evil actions, the evil that they do, the harm that they do is what really angers me. What they do out in the world. The evil actions that they take, the evil actions of, they run the media, the woke, the evil actions of lying to the people, of pushing propaganda, of manipulating people and trying to control people. That's that makes me a lot angrier. They're in politics, in the government. The evil actions of them trying to restrict people's individual rights, their individual liberty, to tell people to coerce people into getting a new experimental vaccine, the kind of evil crap they did around that to try and force that on people, supporting mask mandates, closing down schools, forcing little kids to wear masks. That's a evil behavior. That's what this cult does. This cult believes in government force. They believe in they are authoritarians. This cult believes in censorship. These are all evil things. They believe in mutilating and sterilizing, sacrificing kids, grooming kids, exposing kids to sexual performances. This is all evil stuff that they do. That's the stuff that gets me really angry. But in terms of seeing them put on a ceremonial performance where they are celebrating the fact that they do all of this and that they are the number one religion in the West right now. Um, yeah, anger wasn't at the top of but I understand why it was for some people. Anyway, the point of that is when I see people saying like, "Why are Christians having a cow?" It's like, I rather think that those of you reacting to Christians are the ones having a cow. Why are you having a cow that Christians have opinions and they express them? Why are you having a cow that Christians make correct and obvious observations about your woke cultural ceremonies? Why are you having a cow that we correctly identify your religion and we correctly identify evil and your attempt to mock. And who they're mocking here, some people are like, "Oh, they're mocking Christians." Well, okay, but more than that, though, I think I look at this and I'm like, "Oh, they're mocking God. They're trying to mock God." And the Bible says God will not be mocked. That's why I said I worry for France. I do. And it's not that we're that far behind the US. We're not that far behind them. I mean, I worry for us too. I worry for any nation that does. I mean, this is tantamount to an upside down cross is what it is. It's perversion, subversion of Christianity. It's also a good litmus test for, if you are following, let's say, I've seen a lot of the woke preachers, a lot of the woke Christians revealing themselves after this. I love great revealings. I love them because you learn more about people. People take their masks off. And there have been a lot of so-called Christians I've seen in comments and stuff on social media who are like, "This is just about tolerance and acceptance of gay people," like that. What? And you're a Christian and that's what you think this is? Girl, you are in a religion, that's true, but it's not the one you say you're in. You are in the woke faith. You are in my old religion. That's what you put at the top. God wouldn't have a problem with being mocked in this way. What? Who who are you? What religion are you in? I think we can tell from your fruits, right? You can tell, you shall know them by their fruits. I see what you're preaching. Okay. So this was the thing that I saw the most commentary about afterwards and people correctly observing like, "Oh my gosh, look, they're trying to mock God, they're mocking Christ, they're mocking the Last Supper." And it was so predictable. So predictable. The media's response, the official, the cabal, how they responded, the experts, the media, you know, the elite. When you see, just like with an abuser, when you call out straight facts, and you say, what you're doing is abusive. You punched me, and I'm not gonna be in a home, for example, with someone who punches me. An abuser often lies to you. They obviously they tell you not to believe your lying eyes. They will try and obscure what they're doing with lots of flowery language. They will do what's known as gaslighting, where they try and convince you that you cannot trust reality and you can't trust your own eyes and your own senses, and you don't know what's real and what's true, and they know what's real. And there's that famous anecdote. I'm forgetting who it was about, where this guy was caught cheating with a woman in his bed by his wife, and he was basically like, "Don't believe your eyes. That's not what's happening. It's not what you think it is. Oh, it's not what I think it is. Is it what I see it is? Like, it's, like, right in front of me. Don't trust your lying eyes." That's what abusers do. That's what psychopaths, narcissists, cluster B, personality disorder people do. Sociopaths, that's what they do. And so the media, this cult, woke cult, my old cult, is full of cluster B personality disorder. I think in part, this is a whole different, I wanna go down this rabbit hole, in part because it attracts those people, but also because it creates those people. It encourages and rewards cluster B behaviors, and so you get a lot of it. Of course, it's not the only place where you find cluster B people, you can find them anywhere. I've met cluster B people who say they're Christian. You can find them anywhere, atheists, Muslims, Hindus, you know, conservatives, liberals, everywhere. But there are a lot of them in my old religion. It is a feature, not a bug, to encourage cluster B behaviors. And so the woke media, the woke elites, the people who organize this, the Olympics, they immediately put out their little propaganda talking points and their gaslighting. And they said, "Don't believe your lying eyes. It's not the Last Supper." Even though some of us say it is the Last Supper and we've admitted such. But, it's not the Last Supper, but you don't need to admit such. I can see it. I see what it is. Don't gaslight me, and have enough respect for yourself. I think some of the people in my comments who are trying to convince me that this is something else, I think they really believe it. They're like the abused spouse who are like, yeah, I caught him in bed with this woman, but he said they didn't actually have sex, that right before they started to, he regretted it and he realized how wrong it was. And so he hasn't actually technically cheated on me, and he promised it would never happen again. And he's really angry that I noticed that I said he was cheating when he's not cheating, even though I did catch him in bed naked with her, but it was, he wasn't cheating. He was about to, but he changed his mind. He had this epiphany, and then I walked in then, but he's not doing it, and it's not what I thought it was. And he's a really great guy, and he wouldn't have done that, and I know he would never do that to me. Like, that's what you guys sound like in my comments. It's not the Last Supper. I know it looks just like the Last Supper, and I know that, Barbara Butch, the fat woman in the middle, has said it was the Last Supper, and I know that on the Olympics website, it says it was the Da Vinci painting, The Last Supper, and I know that it looks exactly like the Last Supper, but you guys, let me tell you what it really is, because, they explained it, okay? They explained it's not what we thought we caught them in. It's really supposed to be Dionysus. And you don't know about her because you're stupid, but I just Google searched, and Dionysus is like a Greek god of wine. Okay. And so that's what and because right after this, they did have a blue man come in that was supposed to be Bacchus, also known as Dionysus. Bacchus, the god of wine and chaos, and for all this crazy stuff. We're about to talk about that. That doesn't make it any better. It's like, oh, it's a pagan god. Don't worry. Yeah, that's what we're saying. This is a pagan religious ceremony. Like, it doesn't make it any better, even if you believe that, which you're stupid to believe. I'm sorry, you are. You're stupid to believe that. And some of you do, and you're in my comments saying that. I do have empathy for you because, like I said, you are like an abused spouse who you've been brainwashed and gaslit so much that you're just taking what they say. But then when you become an agent of their evil and you go and repeat that to other people, and especially when you do so in a condescending tone, as if you as if you didn't just look up Dionysus, like as if you didn't, you're like, let me lecture you dumb conservatives. You're just so dumb. What this really is, and I know you wouldn't have guessed it because you don't know, but like, is this really Bacchus? Okay. Teach me. Teach me. Yeah, Codex, it was definitely Bacchanalian. It was. It was, and they rolled in, there's an image of they had painted in blue, they rolled in Bacchus, which again, it's like that doesn't make it better. And Dionysus is the god of winemaking, fertility, insanity, chaos, madness, ritual madness, ecstasy, that we know. I know you guys don't know, and you're just learning it, and you're coming in to educate us. We know who Bacchus is. We know who Dionysus is. Like, okay. Yeah, you also had Bacchus there. We get it. Full on in agreement with what we are saying, that this was a religious pagan ceremony, a cultural display of your woke religion. This was a celebratory, we are the dominant religion ceremony, and we're going to rub it in the face of the religion that we feel like we've successfully subverted, Christianity. We're going to do an upside down cross, essentially. That's the gravity of what this is. It's sacrilegious, yes. It's taking something sacred, Christ, it's making it profane. This is an obvious observation. If you are in a cult that has gaslit you and manipulated you and brainwashed you to such a degree that you think you're a Christian, but you're running around doing the devil's work trying to say on behalf of the abuser, "It's not what you think it is, it's totally cool, guy." Like, y something's really wrong with you, and somebody needs to tell you, "I'll be the one. You're in a religion." Yes, you are, and it's the woke religion, it's my old religion. It's the social justice, identity Marxism religion. You are a Marxist. You can cloak it and pretend to cloak it in Christianity all you want. A lot of people cloak woke and they cloak it in all kinds of things and try and disguise what it is. But we see you, I see you, and I greatly appreciate the mask off moments when you show us who you really are. Justin, you're spot on. Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to say this as succinctly as possible, like what this ceremonial religious display. I'll just do a couple thank yous and then I've got just a tad bit more on this, but thank you to Dabeast808 who became a YouTube member. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. Love your avatar. I really appreciate it. And Dabeast808 is giving out memberships. Just gifted 5 Deprogram memberships. Give him some thanks if you were one of the ones who got those. Thank you so much. Deranged Lunatic, aka DL. Hello, how you doing? For $1.99 says Joe Biden praised the open ceremony. Ugh, it's it's vomitous, right? Of course she would though. She's part of this cult. When people call it satanic, I have an opinion on that as well. I understand what they're saying. It's just like when people say liberal and technically I'm like they're criticizing woke and they call it liberal. It's not liberal, it's illiberal. It is leftist, but it's very illiberal. That's part of the reason I left it. But when they do kind of a generalization and they say liberals do this, I know what they mean though. They're using a different word, but I know what they mean. I know they mean leftist. And it's sort of the same thing with this when I hear people calling it satanic. Technically, are they um are they praising Satan here with their mouth? Do they have the devil up there with them? They do at some of these ceremonial events of theirs, they do. You've seen those in the entertainment space comes to mind immediately. Some of the celebrities who bring Satan into their music videos and their performances. Sometimes they do, but they don't have to do that for it to be satanic. I understand what people mean when they say satanic. If it is not of God, it is of the devil. If it is not of God, it's of the devil. And I've started to understand that more the past year or so. And it's like, I get what they mean when they say that it's a satanic ritual. Um, I don't typically call it that myself, but I know what you mean. That's all. Frying Pants for $1.99. Thank you, Frying Pants says their behavior is smugnorant. It is. What a great word. They're smug and arrogant, and they're so ignorant. They're so ignorant. That's the thing about it is I love it when I get Greek myth explained by people who just copy pasted something about a Greek god that they know nothing about, and they're like trying to tell you how dumb you are. And yeah, there's a lot of that happening right now. There's a lot of that happening right now. But they are operating under all these assumptions of their cult, the cult I used to be in. And a lot of them they have the cult itself gives them this inflated sense of intelligence and moral correctness and intellectual rightness. Like they do the longer they're in that cult, the more arrogant and ignorant they become because they don't read anything outside of that cult. They certainly don't read history. They don't read dystopian fiction. They don't read any of the things that they will copy and paste and reference. If you know this, because if you start to try to have a conversation with them, I'm speaking in generalities, most of them, if you start to try to talk to them about this, they don't know any of the things they're talking about. They don't have the ability to, in their own words, go back and forth with you and have a conversation about it because they've just learned this today. They were just given their talking points today from the cult. They just saw it on a friend's page who's in the woke cult as well, and they said, "Oh, Dionysus. Oh, there we go. Let me copy paste that. I learned there's my response." That's what the cult's telling me. There's no thinking that happens in woke. There's no thinking. And I can say this having been in it for 20 years. You stop thinking slowly over time. You put your mind in a prison, you put your mind in a cage, and there's no thought happening. What is happening is a regurgitation of cult beliefs and cult responses that they've given you to say. And so if I think back to the time that I was in the cult, it's almost like if your mind's a filing cabinet, whenever anybody says something and you know, as a cult member, you're supposed to push back against it. Like, for example, if you are in the woke cult and you see Christians accurately saying, this was a mockery of the Last Supper, recreation of the Last Supper, um, you know you're supposed to push back against that. You've already gotten your cult marching orders. You've already seen in your circles that people are pushing back against it. You've already seen your cult mainstream media, the elites who give you your marching orders telling you that it's incorrect to think that. And so then you sort through your filing cabinet, your brain, of all the things, all of the responses that you might use. And so if it's a new event that just happened like this, you may not have a response, but they just gave you one today. Now you have one. Now you cut and paste the thing about Dionysus. Now you cut and paste the thing about Bacchus. Now you cut and paste, you cut and paste the false apology, which we're about to look at. That's what they do. They just sort through the filing cabinet and like, here, let me give you that. But they're not engaged in what you're saying. They're not listening. They're not curious. uh Cult members are not. Their thing is just to swat down anything that's critical of the cult, anything that the cult views as threatening. And I'll say this for people who are getting out of that cult, and I know there's a lot of you who I've met who've been in the chat from time to time. The longer that you're out of it, the more you start to just enjoy your freedom. And when I was young, before I got into the cult of woke, I was a voracious reader. I read all the time. I was the nerd. I was in the reading tournament. My husband laughs at me about this, although he's a voracious reader. But he's like, you were in I was in the reading tournament. It wasn't required. It was just something I did in the summers. It was a countywide thing. And every summer I loved it. I loved reading. That's the point. I loved reading. And then when I got into the woke cult in college, I over time stopped reading as much. And this also became obvious to me once I got out of it. Because when I was in it, the only books that I would read were the cult reading list. So I would order the things I was supposed to be reading so I could be prepared with the things I was supposed to say in response to anyone critical of the cult. I would read the cult literature, and that's it. I did have some, I would say, things that aren't threatening to the cult that were just like pastimes. Like I read a lot of, I love zombie fiction. I read a lot of zombie fiction back then. I would read things that weren't threatening to the cult, but I didn't read any history. I didn't read anything by anyone with a perspective that wasn't woke. Nothing political or nothing from an ideology or a belief system that woke opposed. I didn't read anything by Christians. I didn't read anything by conservatives. The books I would buy back then, and it was like all it was the theorists, the identity Marxist theorists, like bell hooks. I still have a ton of bell hooks books. um I, I read the ones that were more in the pop space, like the activists, the celebrity woke activists, the identity Marxist activists. So I had all of Michael Moore's books. Like I would buy the ones in the pop entertainment space as well. And that was it. It was just about imbibing as much of that as possible. So when people criticize the cult, you could copy paste from your filing cabinet of the information you had what to say. Here's a great example. When you're in a conversation and you're trying to actually talk to someone and they start throwing out these cult phrases that they just all repeat, these mantras. It's very religious. It's like a ritual. They have mantras that they say. Instead of saying Christ is king or Jesus is Lord, they have things that they say like check your white privilege or stay in your lane or uh, you know, stop mansplaining. If you're a man, you're mansplaining to me. Um, they have sit down and shut up and listen to BIPOC people. They have these things that they say to stop conversation. These are conversation enders. And they don't even realize why while they're doing it that they're throwing out conversation enders. They just know this is what they're supposed to do in the cult. And they afterwards they have this feeling of like temporary elation that they won because they gave you one of the defeater lines. They view that as somehow like a conquering thing, I guess, or ha, I sure told that bigot, that conservative. I told him he was mansplaining to me, and then we ended conversation there. Like, okay, you didn't talk to him because you can't. You can't defend your views, and you certainly can't do it without getting triggered and angry and all those things that you accuse other people of. Okay, Randy. Hey, Randy. Randy Wallen for $10. I got to see Randy yesterday. I hope he doesn't mind me saying so. Randy goes to my church, which is awesome. And we had 3 baptisms yesterday. It was beautiful. And yeah, it was really I had a great weekend. I hope you guys did too. Oh, Randy for $10. The West failed to defend itself for decades. Christians believed their own press, moral majority in the 80s and the Christian coalition in the 90s, and they allowed this garbage to take root. Now it's dominant. I absolutely agree with you. And the funny thing is, during the 90s, Randy, I was on the opposite side. I was in the garbage cult. And I thought the moral majority and the Christian coalition and all of those groups were horribly backward bigots, that they were ignorant, that they weren't as smart as we were, the trash cult, we're the woke cult. And I had all these different prejudices and assumptions about those people. Some of those I still think were true. A lot of the people who were the figureheads of those movements were flaming hypocrites and televangelist types who came to represent the face of Christianity for a lot of us non-believers. And that's why I think now as a Christian, it's so important not to prop up those false shepherds, not to prop up these wolves in shepherd's clothing, and to call them out and to say, it's inexcusable to have a person and people and pastors and deacons and people in those leadership positions. They are held to a higher standard for a reason. They will be called to account for their actions and for the level of responsibility they were given. They are responsible for the flock. And when they stumble, they have a duty to tell their deacons and to step down and to get help. If they are absolute snakes in shepherd's clothing and they're never going to be the type to do that because they don't have any sincerity in them and it's all just a grift and a con, well, then I would say it's up to the congregation and the deacons to say, no, we see what you're doing. We see what you are. This is inexcusable. That's a little bit of a tangent, but now as a believer, it's like, that's why I have some of my greatest, I want to talk about anger. Some of my greatest anger is reserved for false shepherds, for these woke preachers who preach a different religion. They don't preach Christianity. I tangled with one of these the other day on X. He's preaching woke and pretending, this guy in Austin, pretending it's Christianity. It's not. I have the most disgust for those people and the hypocrites, and yes, the serial philanderers and all those who are in these powerful positions and because you know what they do is they lead the little ones astray. For people like me, when I was not a Christian and I looked at it, those were the ones who I would see as the figureheads, and I was like, "Well, that's, if that's what Christianity is, I don't wanna be in that." They lead the little ones astray, and Jesus said it would be better for them that a millstone were tied around their ankle and they were thrown into the depths of the sea than what awaits them doing that, right? I think he had a lot of disgust with that too, probably. Okay. I do wanna come back to this. There's so much stuff I have, queued up. Just I know we're moving on to the women, the white women for Kamala, but I wanted to show you a couple things just to dispel some myths for the people who believe the abusers, they believe the cluster B psychopaths, they believe the elite, and they're out there, repeating the lies of the abuser, like, "This is not supposed to be the Last Supper, even though it looks exactly like it." Here we go. Let me share this. Um, this one. Okay. So, also, you can see it here from the horse's mouth. Celebrate the games at the heart of Paris. All the information here. Sortierparis.com. And then they're talking about everything you're gonna see in the opening ceremonies. A familiar scene reenacted by drag queens, including the famous Nikki Doll, surrounded by Barbara Butch at her turntables. A recreation of The Last Supper, another famous painting by Leonardo da Vinci, set against the backdrop. Like this is all here. They're saying it in their own words. Let me show you a different one. Let me stop sharing this for 1 second. Barbara Butch, who they mentioned, they say she's gonna be at her turntables. So she's the obese woman who is, a model and I guess a DJ, and this is her on her socials. She posted the image, Barbara Butch, with the picture of the Last Supper below it, and she says, "Oh, yes!" Exclamation, "Oh, yes! The new gay testament." And then she's got the black Marxist communist, the power fist. She's got the communist fist, and she's got the rainbow flag. That's their religion. I've told you guys before, like that rainbow flag doesn't mean anything to do with gay and lesbian people anymore. I mean, that's what they pretend it has to do with, but they're using gay and lesbian people to push communism. It's a communist flag. That's what the fist is too. Doesn't have anything to do with black people. Not really. They're using black people like they use women. It's These are the symbols of their religion, of Marxism, of communism, and she's celebrating. She's celebrating. Yeah, my friend Will sit here says Barbara Butch, the woman in the middle who subverted Christ, makes it very clear in her socials that it was not about the feast of Dionysus. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Mark, it's so sad, these poor people. It is. Um, it is sad, and actually, my first reaction to seeing it was just disgust, and it wasn't anger, it was disgust and honestly, like, worry for France, and for all of us in the West, but, God will not be mocked. And the people lost in that cult, I was talking with some of us after church were talking with their pastor yesterday, and just about praying for people who are lost and who are doing evil, celebrating evil, committing evil, and he was sort of saying, the thing about it is, I was thinking about this a lot more last night. He was sort of saying, you have to be prepared if you're praying for someone who is an enemy of God. You have to be prepared for actual redemption if they are redeemed, if they repent, actual repentance, if there's an actual conversion that happens. Are you prepared to forgive as Christ forgives and to let go of everything? If there's an actual conversion. And I was thinking about people in my life, and maybe you have people in your life who've wronged you and stuff. I was thinking about them, and it's like, I am. I know I am. If I can imagine that happening, I know I would be. It's just that for some people, I can't imagine that ever happening. I can't imagine. I know God can do it, anything, but some people have hardened their hearts. They've given themselves over completely. And so I'm still figuring that out in prayer. Like, I still pray for them that God surrounds them in light and truth and love. But I don't always, for some of them, I don't think that's going to happen. I think God surrounding them in light and love and truth might work to reveal what they actually are, to have their mask off, like at this ceremony, the mask coming off of what this cult is. But yeah, I'm still thinking about that. It's very few, though, that I feel this way about. I absolutely agree. Ron Copperman, remember that Saul was turned to Paul. I know God can do anything. If I could, if I, he saved me. Like, I'm like, if you, I have friends, similar friends who were out in the world as long as I was and engaged in all kinds of sin and debauchery and ways of the world. And, I look at myself and people like me and I'm like, God can save anyone. I know that. I'm not talking about uh, the level of adherence to a conflicting belief system or anything like that. I'm just talking about people who, I guess, like some of like the most cluster B people, for example, those kind of people. I kind of some of those people who are just they delight in hurting people, and they delight in it's not just that they're in an evil religion and they do evil things because they're in that evil religion, but their nature is such that they seem to love evil. Like some of those people I view as like Pharaoh in the Bible, where it says God hardened his heart. Like, I think of their heart as hardened. So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm still thinking about all that. John, cluster bees attract each other. That yes, they do. I have seen this happen. Pirate Tomsky the Mod. I don't get the outrage. That guy was just hanging out, enjoying the fresh Paris air. He's talking about right next to one of the kids, because they had a kid there at that scene. There was a man with his testicles hanging out. I'm not going to show that image, but you can find it. That's what I think you're talking about, Pirate Tomsky. I don't. He was just hanging out, enjoying the fresh Paris air. Yeah, balls out. That's what was happening. Let's look quickly at their fake apology. This is the gaslighting tactics of an abuser, as I mentioned, and so it's interesting as an illustration of that. And you can see here, Paris Olympics organizers say sorry for offense. Well, they don't actually. If you scroll down, they don't. We'll see what they actually said. But the headline is from CBS: Olympics organizers say sorry for offense, but insist that the opening ceremony did not depict the Last Supper. Oh, trust me. What are you going to believe? Your lying eyes? What are you going to believe? So here's part of their defense. The opening ceremony director, Thomas Jolly, says, the idea was to create a big pagan party. Yes, that's what we are saying. Again, I don't get how this is a defense of anything. Then when they're like, Dionysus was there. Yeah, we know. We saw Dionysus. We saw Bacchus. Yes, also. This is a big pagan religion on the world stage. It's a big pagan ritual ceremony, and basically proclaiming we are the dominant religion in the West. This is the dominant religion. Yes, we agree. So I don't, it, that doesn't make things better. They've got the Tates in here who are disgusting. I guess the Tates to organize a protest. This is what I'm talking about, by the way, when I say false shepherds also. I know these are not preachers, but these guys, the Tate brothers, I've covered them before. These are the kind of false shepherds that you need to call out and stand far away from, because these people do your cause no good. And to people on the outside trying to figure out what you're about, if you uh, raise up to the top and you promote and celebrate wolves like this, you're not giving people on the outside who might have questions, who might be thinking of reconsidering things. If this is what they look when they try to figure out what you're about and it's these guys, no. The Tates are fake. Yes, I saw through them a while ago. They absolutely are. These are false shepherds leading a lot of men and women astray. Well, they say some true things. Yeah. Yeah, so do the hypocritical con artist mega preachers. Well, of course they say some true things. That's how con artists get you. That's how snake oil salesmen get you. They're going to sell some of your beliefs right back to you and say they believe in them. Look at their behavior, though. Are these righteous men? No. Are they good role models for men on how to be successful? Pimping out women? Teaching men how to become pimps? Selling the sex of women to get money? Like, no. But they say some real things that are true. Yeah, lots, and I prefer to follow and promote people who say true things, who are also sincere and who bear the fruits of what they believe. I don't wanna be lumped in with wolves like this. So it shows them. And then we get on to the fake apology. This again is the creative director of the Olympics ceremony, Thomas Jolly. Um, Clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. What? What? It was, right there in the scene. You did the Last Supper. I mean, clearly, there was an intention, yes, to show disrespect to Christians. Let's be specific about which religious group, to Christians. There was an intent. We saw it. That's a blatant lie. That's a complete reversal, which is, again, what cluster B sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths do. Then he says, on the contrary, I think this is the spokesperson speaking, not Thomas Jolly. This is Anne DeCamp. She's the spokesperson for the Olympics. She says, I think with Thomas Jolly, we really did try to celebrate community tolerance. Again, reversals, projection. This is Orwellian language. This is 1984. This is George Orwell. This is where they call things the opposite of what they are. And the woke do this all the time. Abusers do this all the time. They call it the exact opposite of what it is. Well, I hit you because I love you, that kind of thing. I just love you so much. I got so angry and I love you so much. I lost my temper for a second. I hit you, but it's because I love you so much. It was love, right? It was just an aberrant expression of my love. In Orwell's 1984, and if you've read it, which a lot of people on the left have not read it, they like to pretend like they have, but they don't know anything about it. They can't talk to you about it. But in that book, in that dystopian futuristic society, everything is named the opposite of what it is. So you have the Ministry of Truth, which is concerned with what? Pushing propaganda. The ministry, but they call it the Ministry of Truth, but it's the Ministry of Propaganda. You have the Ministry of Love, which is about war and hate. Like they name it the opposite of what it is. And you see this in the woke. What do they call racism? Their racism, when they are racist, when they look at and judge people differently on the basis of race, and they say that's what we should all do, that we should look at people and treat them differently based on what race they are. They say we should do this, that you should, and we're about to show you some clips of white women doing this. They say you should treat black people differently than white people. You should notice what racial group they're in. And if they're black, you should do this. And if they're white, you should do this. And it should govern your behavior around them. That's racist. What do they call it? Anti-racist. They call it the opposite of what it actually is. Ibram X. Kendi. He's one of the woke, identity Marxists. I would say he's more in the popular space. He's in the theory space and the popular space. And he says outright, we have to discriminate on the basis of race as part of anti-racism. We have to discriminate on the basis of race. Do you hear that? Until we reach this fully anti-racist society, then we can stop doing it, presumably, right? We can stop being racist. Okay. You're calling the thing the opposite of what it is. And they do that right here. We were trying to celebrate community tolerance. It's not tolerance. It's not tolerance. It's not community. It was a celebration. It was a celebration of your divisive, intolerant religion, woke. It was definitely a forced celebration of that for the whole world tuning in, right? Even families with little kids that didn't know what they were gonna be getting. So then he says, not only does he tell us these or tells us these 2 lies, then she says, "Looking at the results of the polls that we share, we believe this ambition was achieved." So they believe that they achieved community tolerance and so with this religious ceremony that they did, this woke religious ceremony. Um, Liar. And then she says, "If people have taken any offense," this is a fake apology. "If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry." Um, if you were offended, you know that there were offended people. There's no if there. You know that there were offended people. You can say to the people who were offended, "We are really sorry." And even that's not a great apology because 'cause you're putting the behavior, the action on them. You're saying, "I'm sorry you were offended." It's a little better than, "I'm sorry if you were offended," but it's still, "I'm sorry you were this thing. I'm sorry you were offended." I don't expect them to take responsibility for what they did. I don't expect them to do that at all. But if they really were sorry for something that they did that was offensive, that they didn't intend to be offensive, they would say, "I'm sorry we did this offensive thing. We didn't know." That's what a real apology is. "I did not intend for this to hurt you. I'm sorry that it hurt you. It wasn't my intention." That's a real apology, not, "I'm sorry if it hurt you," after the person just said, "It hurt me." Like, okay. It's just a interesting like, study of a display of cluster B tactics, abuser tactics. That's what we've been seeing. Super Based is here. Super Based, thanks for gifting 5 memberships. You guys give it up for Super Based, another one of our membership fairies. I appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna get into the white women stuff now. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say about, that. I mean, there was a lot, but the obese woman in the middle, Barbara Butch, is now saying she's gonna sue people who are criticizing her online. What? Okay. That was kind of funny, but we don't need to talk about that. She's gonna do a lawsuit, people. Let's look at this. So, one of the grossest things I mentioned on the last stream that I've seen around the, PR campaign for Kamala Harris, who has now replaced Joe Biden on the ticket, with no election to do so, just, appointed that she is now running for president. Um, we're gonna lose our democracy. Yeah, you might. You don't seem to value it very much. Anyway, now that she is running for president, one of the grossest things I've seen is the segregation that's happening in that woke social justice cult I used to be in, the segregation in support of Kamala. And we see this all the time. It's not surprising. They do this all the time, but it's just worth pointing out. It's worth observing because it's interesting. They started forming all these groups based on racial identity and like what sex you are, what gender you are, and they started doing these fundraising calls for her based on that, and it's worth pointing out for people who are still in that cult because they don't see it. It's like they don't this is the water they swim in as a fish, and so they're used to it, and you almost have to point it out to them for them to see it, that it happens. But the segregation that happens in the woke left is everywhere. I mean, it happens at college graduations. They've started doing all these racially segregated ceremonies now where it's like, I'm going to the black graduation ceremony. Oh, well, I'm going to the white graduation ceremony. It's really gross. And they don't even notice it. It's like, dude, you guys are Democrats are still supporting segregation in 2024, but I guess it's on brand for the party if you learn about the history of the party and the Civil Rights Act. Am I right? Which a lot of them don't know about. I didn't know about when I was a Democrat. Anyway, here we go. These are some of the different racial and sex segregated groups. And once you get out of that cult, this is really odd. If you're in that cult, I want to explain what it looks like outside of the cult. Outside the cult, it's sort of like, why would the first thing you think of when it comes to organizing a group of people be your race? It's like, you know what? I'm gonna get a bunch your race and I'm gonna get a lot of white women together because we all agree on everything. We have one opinion. That's the way your cult thinks, though. That's the way the woke cult thinks. Like, you guys think that all black people think alike and all black women think alike and all like there's one, and that's why you attack so heartily anyone who's in any of those groups who's a conservative, because they go against your orthodoxy. They prove that that's not the case. You view them as apostates. That's why you go after anyone who's not woke. Like, my friend Adam Coleman, constantly, he posts his hate mail. You guys call him the N-word all the time. You call him a house N-word. You call him a house slave. You call him all these really racist things. Your racism comes out, man. Talk about mask off in his comments. Like, you really hate people who are black, who are not woke. You really hate drag queens who are not woke. You really hate gay people who are not woke. You hate women who are not. Why? Because they are living, breathing evidence that your religion is pushing lies, that there's one way to think if you are a black woman or a white woman, for example. Okay, so here are some of the groups. This one is the White Dudes for Harris. Let's do our part to help elect Kamala Harris. Here's our virtual meeting. Hashtag. It's like White Dudes for Harris. Gross. This is, I don't know. It's just, it gives me immediate disgust. Like, like if I can't imagine being married to or dating someone who's part of the White Dudes for Harris call. Like, at least if he's backwards if he's for Harris either way. But if he's specifically going to the White Dudes for Harris groups, it's just, ugh. Okay. Here we go. Black men for Harris. Let's get even more segregated. Let's get these groups going. Let's all separate ourselves based on race and sex, because that never is a bad idea, right? Black men for Harris, joining in solidarity. This is the one we're going to be showing clips from in a second. The white women Zoom call. White women answer the call for Kamala Harris, is saying it's the largest call in the history of Zoom. And they had some white women celebrities on there too. Or I guess influencers. I don't know. I don't know who these people are, but they featuring these people and many more white women and many more woke white women. Oh, I mentioned this on the last stream, but my friend Josh Slocum from Disaffected, I saw on Twitter, he said, "Welcome to hell," which still makes me laugh so hard. I can't think of anything more excruciating than being on a call with like 40,000 woke white women. Oh, gross. Okay, because the sanctimony, that's the other thing. The sanctimony of the woke white women is worse than some of the other groups. It's they're very proud of themselves. They're like the people who call themselves Christian who are really like self-satisfied about, like that kind of like the people who say they're Christians, but they're really like full of themselves with and it being I'm on the, I don't know. It just reminds me they're very religious and in a I don't know if religious is the right word, like sanctimonious. A lot of the white women wokes are sanctimonious, put it that way. And we're about to watch that. I'll show you some of that. Here's another one. This is a white lady And wow, look at that airbrushing. She's using that, it's the Vaseline 2000 app. Anyway, she's got her picture on there. She says, "Hey, Republicans, me and over 130,000 of my fellow white American women raised $2 million in 2 hours. Y'all should be scared. Thoughts and prayers." There's her little sarcastic dig at believers, right? Thoughts and prayers. But the the 130,000 of my fellow white women. Ew. Why are you in these racist groups that are just for white women? What is your problem? Here's one for South Asian men. It gets so specific. South Asian men for Harris, calling all South Asian men. What? Why don't you just organize around ideas and belief system? I mean, you are all woke, so you are organizing around, but within woke, it's what do they go to next? Well, they go right straight to race and sex. That's what they do. It's not like gun owners, like that's organizing around some like a policy position. Gun owners for Harris, or you know, it's not around an idea. It's not around a belief or an opinion or something you agree on. It's just around your race? So weird. Okay. Is this like gays for Gaza? Says Frying Pants. Yes, it is. It is. And I can already hear the critics. I'll say something quickly because somebody did ask me about this on Twitter. They said, "What about some of the groups like this for Trump?" Like there was a like a Black Women for Trump rally or something that happened somewhere. I don't know. It's not like this. It's not some huge fundraising group, but there have been people who show up at rallies and stuff who are like, women for Trump or gays for Trump and things like that. And I have friends who've been in some of these events. Um, I don't personally like adopting the beliefs of the enemy in order to defeat the enemy. So I don't like adopting identity, like the way in which they place so much importance on race and sex. I don't like doing that. However, I do understand its importance sometimes as a tool, because if you are trying to reach people in that cult and that is what they think is important, and they do, they think race is all these different groups that they call oppressed in their Marxist religion, their identity Marxist religion. All those groups that they pretend, they lie and say they speak for: women, Black people, gay people, trans people, drag queens, or whatever. All those groups they say they speak for, which they don't. Since they buy into that and they believe that, I do think it's useful for them to hear voices of people who are in those groups and are like, "Hey, you don't speak for me." And I understand why, in reaction to that, you get some of that on the right sometimes where people are like, "Let's show them. Look, we're like gays against screamers." That's a great example. I understand why they do that, why they're named that. They are trying to show, "Look, there are a ton of gay people who do not support transing kids and pushing gender ideology on children and mutilating and sterilizing kids." I get why they do that, because they're trying to appeal to those people who do think identity is very important. But you have to be aware. The reason I'm not a part of any like women for Trump group or anything is it I see its usefulness. I just that's not for me. Maybe it will be in the future. I don't know. That's just not for me. I'm very wary around the identity politics thing because that's where I came from. And that's what woke is. It's built on that. But I will highlight, you know, the voices of friends who are in some of these groups that don't agree with them. And I love to do interviews with people who've left the cult, or who were never in the cult, who check off some of the boxes that they care about so much, just to show them there's a big wide world out there, and not everybody who's in XYZ identity group has the same opinion. I know you guys think that they do or that they should, and they don't, and they shouldn't. Powder. Power Keg Greg says he's in Gingers for Trump. Is that a thing? John Thomas. Oh, thank you. Let me get this last super chat about the Olympics before we watch some of this video from White Ladies for Trump. John Thomas for $10. Thank you for supporting the channel. Says the entire ceremony was full of apocalyptic symbolism. Death on a pale horse, Lucifer leading all nations. Even ancient Greeks thought the feast of Dionysus was debauchery. Yes. God will not be mocked. Thank you for those comments, and I absolutely agree with you. Jody Humphrey is with normal people for Trump. I love it. I'm gonna organize. I love humor like that too. I love stuff like that. So go for it. I have a group called Feminists Against Feminism, just because I think it's funny. So do your normal people for Trump. Okay. Let's watch some of this. So in this white women for Harris call, we're going to watch one of these white women talk to us. Tiffany Justice, who is a friend of the show. I've interviewed her before. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. She's one of the founders of Moms for Liberty, an organization that I think is doing great work. And there you go. There's another example of an identity group, moms. Although it's an identity group, but it's not like an immutable, it's not something you're born with, but people who have chosen to become moms. It's a group. And I think that's very useful. Moms for Liberty has done amazing work at school boards all across the country. Tiffany is just, she's brilliant. I think she's a great person. She's got her head screwed on straight, and she is very effective. And I greatly respect her. So she, among a lot of people I saw, were talking about this call. And she said, I really don't know what to say about this white women's call. It's so racist. Yeah, it is. Everything the Democrats are doing is based on regressive stereotypes. Yes, it is. They have this black stereotype, a stereotype of what black people are that maybe we'll have time to get into today also. She says that Kamala says, we aren't going back, but all they're doing groups in a get out the so white women pay attention, quote, check your privilege bubble and put your listening ears on. How can you be a good white person for Kamala Harris?
We need to use our privilege.
Okay, this woman, this is on the answer the call thing. Now, this woman is, if you're not in the cult and you're not used to being spoken to like this, it's really excruciating to listen to, because it is listening to an abuser, a manipulator. And her tone, this woman used to be a kindergarten teacher, and her tactic is to speak in a very condescending tone, as if you're a child, and to use language of children, and to talk down to you and condescend to you. And it's revolting if you're not in the cult and used to being spoken to this way. But here, we're going to listen to what she says white women need to do. This is one of the white saviors. The white saviors. We're coming to save the black women.
As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself...
Let's stop. I want to break this down as we go. And I'm showing you how it's a religion and a cult. As white women, we need to use our privilege. Okay, first of all, there's an assumption made there. This is one of the big assumptions, the tenets of the woke religious cult, the Marxist cult. They believe, and this comes down from all the way from the woke theory. If you read the critical theory, the critical race theory, critical feminist theory, if you read queer theory, all of it. So they believe the best way to look at the world is as a competition for power among identity groups. This is mutated Marxism. Okay, it's evolved Marxism. It came from Marxism. Marxism said the best way to look at the world is as a competition for money among class groups, and that we need to redistribute the money or the means of production. We need to seize the means of productions and redistribute it, and we'll reach this equity in this utopia. That failed. Marxism failed. And so a lot of these Marxists became cultural Marxists, which is a term that they have boogie-banned now and they have demonized. And if you look it up, it'll tell you like cultural Marxism is a term that alt-right white nationalists use. And so they successfully demonized that term so you couldn't use that term anymore without being called those things that you're not. I'm sure there are some of those crazy white nationalists who do use that term, but that doesn't mean that it's not an accurate term. In any case, they correctly demonized, they isolated, attacked, and demonized that term because they don't want you to name what the ideology is. They don't want you to explain it to people and explain how it has roots in Marxism. So now people say woke. Woke is the most colloquial term. It's the one that it's the most well known. Other terms for it are social justice, identity Marxism, identitarianism. These are all describing the same thing. It's all describing the same belief system. And it's the belief system that says this woman subscribes to it. Whether she's read the theory that it came from or not, she probably hasn't. Most of the people speaking it have not read the theory, but that's where it came from. And it says it explicitly. The theorists said it explicitly. They believe the world is best viewed as a competition for power between identity groups. And just like old school Marxism, they say within all these identity groups, you can break it down and you can identify the oppressor group and the oppressed group. Marxism did the same, talked about the oppressor and the oppressed. And so they say it's about identity, though, not class, not the bourgeois, and the working class or the proletariat. They say it's about identity. It's the white people. They're the oppressor. That's within the category of race. It's the men. They're the oppressor. That's within the category of sex. It's all these different identity categories. And in every one of them, they've identified an oppressor and the oppressed. And they say the oppressors have privilege. That's why they also interchangeably call them the privileged. They have privilege. And they say the oppressed groups are marginalized. They interchangeably call them the marginalized. Okay. So within the oppressor groups, they have a premise, and she's operating from this premise, this religious belief. This is a belief of faith, like a religion, that all white people have privilege, which is not true. It's factually incorrect. You can look around you and you can see that every human being is an individual and they are born with a myriad of, let's use their language, of privileges and marginalizations. And there's an infinite number of them. And being white does not cancel out any of the myriad of marginalizations that you might be born into. And this is why when you give them examples and you say, as people used to say to me, for example, they say women that we are in one of the oppressed groups, right? We're marginalized and we don't have male privilege. We don't have it. They say that we don't have the power to inflict any of the sexist prejudice we might have against men. Just like they say people of color do not have power and therefore they can't be racist. They say women do not have power and therefore we can't be sexist. They say it requires power and privilege to inflict any prejudice that you have. This isn't true, by the way. A great example. They used to say to me, when I started leaving the cult, they would say, I'll remove that just for a second. They would say, Keri, any prejudice you might have had against men, because you're a woman, you're oppressed and you're marginalized and you don't have the power. Your group doesn't have the power to inflict any of that prejudice on men. This is, first of all, it's condescending and sexist to say that. It's absolutely sexist to say that because I'm a woman. I don't have any power. It's completely sexist. Do you realize what you're doing? People in that cult, you were looking at women and saying they're all like this. It's really condescending when you do it to Black people too. You don't have the power to do this. You need my help and my privilege as a white person. You need my privilege and power as a white. You know who else believes this? White supremacists. They believe this, that white people have this special access and power and privilege. And that men do, right? So it's factually incorrect because I owned my own business. as a woman. Oh my goodness, I was in an oppressed group, but I owned my own business, and I was able to inflict any prejudice I had against men or against, let's just leave it to the category in which they say I'm oppressed, being a woman. Okay. So they would say I don't have the power to be sexist towards men, but I was. I didn't hire men. I chose that. I had the power over who I hired. I had the power over which clients I represented. I only represented one straight white man the whole time I had my company, and he performed in drag. So, I chose that. I could be sexist if I wanted to, and I was. I was woke, and I inflicted my power in my choices. And they try and say that's impossible. And if you give them extreme examples to try and help them see through this bullshit, they still can't see it. If you say, "But what about a white homeless man and Oprah Winfrey? Does he have more privilege than her just because he's a man and he's white? Does he have more privilege than Oprah Winfrey?" And they give an extreme example, so hopefully you can help see the point. And the person will say, with a straight face, that homeless white man has more privilege than Oprah Winfrey. He's more privileged and powerful in society than Oprah Winfrey. They will say this. Something that they don't even really believe. Their ideology, my old ideology, forces you to lie to other people and to yourself and to say crazy things like that. They will say that. Okay, so let's continue with this woman. I just wanted to pause it there because right out the gate, first thing she says, white people have privilege. That's not true. That's not a statement of fact. They say it because it's a religious belief. They say it as if it's something that we all accept to be truth, like gravity. Like they just say it. You have privilege. It's a built-in religious belief in this woke identity Marxist religion. This is something they accept as a basic tenet. This would be in their woke Bible. Like this is one of their foundational beliefs. White people have privilege. Let me back it up. Here we go.
Use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And
second thing right here, you are not allowed to speak over or correct or disagree with a BIPOC. What does BIPOC mean? That's their new fancy word. It used to be POC, people of color. Now it's BIPOC, Black Indigenous people of color. Basically, if you are a white person, they say you have this original sin that you were born with in this religion. It's called privilege, and you are not allowed to contradict, disagree, or correct a person of color, even if they're wrong. This is religion. You have to sit down and shut up. Why? Because you have a greater amount of sin than they do. I mean, privilege than they do because you're white. Look at your collective sin. Look at your privilege. Acknowledge it. Sit down and shut up. Let the person of color be wrong. Let them be abusive. Let them be whatever they want. You need to sit down and shut up. In this cult, you sit down and shut up. You don't contradict a Black person. Not in this racist woke cult. Caveat, because I know some of you are thinking it already. If you're in that woke cult, you're like, well, this isn't always true because I really disagree with Black conservatives like Larry Elder. He's just way off base. Yeah, you do. Because again, you don't actually believe the things you say. You don't follow your own religious tenets. Do you? If there's a conservative Black person, you know who the first person telling that conservative Black person to shut up would be, and calling them the N-word and calling them Uncle Tom and everything? This white savior. She would be there talking all over them and correcting them. She would be telling them how they're being Black wrong. She would be telling them how they're selling out their race because they don't have the correct one allowed woke Black opinion. They're not in the orthodoxy. They're not in the cult. They're not doing Black right. She would be all over condemning them and showing up in their DMs calling them nasty racist words. But within the cult, if we're on the same cult page and we're in the woke religion together, white people have to shut up when a black person's talking. This is part of their racist faith. Does it sound attractive being in a cult like this? It's not fun.
Individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So, do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change.
Okay, that's a bunch of gobbledygook, cult language, cult words. What is she saying? So she mixed in a little bit of her language of talking to kids, put our listening ears on. That's her condescending and talking down to you. But also, she says that you have to use your privilege, your voice, this power, this magical white people power that you have. You have to use it to lift up and the voices of marginal. So there she said it. She's in the woke cult. She says all their words, marginalized people, oppressed people. This is identity Marxism. This is straight from Marx. You have to lift up the voices of the marginalized people. This is racist for a number of reasons. Number one, it assumes, like white supremacists do, that there's this magical power and privilege that comes with being white and that you have it and black people don't. And they need you to lift up their voices. And number two, it's racist because it trains you and teaches you. What did I say earlier? It teaches you. This cult taught me to treat people of color differently than white people. It teaches her. She's there saying, and she goes on to clarify in your feed, like on Twitter and things like this, you have a responsibility in this cult to promote what? Woke people who are black and who are not white. You have a responsibility to retweet their stuff and lift it up simply because of their race. You have a responsibility to treat them differently and give them, use your power and privilege to lift their voices up, the woke black people. It's condescending as if they even need it, but it's also coercive and racist because it's teaching you that the whole reason you promote them is not what they're saying and not because they're a great thinker, not because they have a great idea, but because they're black. So you should retweet them. You should treat them differently. And if you think this doesn't psychologically change the way you think about people when you interact with them, you're wrong. The longer they stay in this cult, the more racist they become. They are incapable of at a party or a function or event. They're incapable of just being themselves and hanging out with people and meeting people as individuals. They meet everybody as group members. It's sick. I used to do this when I was in the cult. They hone in on people. They're like, black woman over there, let me treat her this way. White man over there, let me treat him this way. It psychologically impacts the way you see people and you start to see them as the other. It doesn't matter if your religion tells you you're supposed to elevate them. You're still treating them differently as some alien, who needs some weird special treatment from you because you're white and you gotta divest of your privilege, your special white people privilege. I'm a good white person. I'm gonna be your friend because you're a black woke person. I'm a white woke person. I want you to think I'm one of the good ones, and I'm gonna elevate your voice, so I'm doing the work. This is a sick cult. If you're in this cult and you're hearing me describe it this way, you know it's true, though. Maybe you haven't heard it described so plainly what it is you're doing, what this cult's doing to you, turning you into a sick racist and a sexist, but it is.
As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So, do check your blind spots.
You have a lot to learn and unlearn. That's the programming. That's like a re-education camp. We have to unlearn everything. What are they unlearning, by the way? What did I unlearn? Well, I unlearned what the definition of racism is. I unlearned like what the definition of sexism is. I unlearned that it's impossible to fight racism while being a racist, while behaving in racist ways. I unlearned that. Now they're also unlearning what a woman is. They're unlearning a lot.
You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not. Intentionally seek out and share content from BIPOC creators, activists, thought leaders. They should be the leaders of conversations about race and justice and equity. So Just whatever you do, don't stay silent on issues of injustice.
Really? Here's another example of them not believing what they say, because one of their mantras is silence is violence, but then they also tell you not to stay silent. Wait, so you're telling me to be violent? Because you said silence. Wait, don't say silence because silence is violence. Oh, but if you say words that they disagree with, like they don't believe any of these things that they say, not deep down, none of it. This also that part about the algorithm, that's the racism in action that I told you about. She's telling white people, "It is your job to view people based on race and gender, and you need to go out and collect them and retweet them and really promote them based on their race and sex."
Big changes can start with just one person who's brave enough to speak up. But do know when to walk away from an argument for your own sake. Um, there are some strangers you'll meet online who are persuadable, but some are not. I know when you see some headlines or someone makes a wild claim, it can be really shocking. But do give yourself permission to pause, take a breath, and do a Google search and ask questions and be critical of the sources. I was a kindergarten teacher, and sometimes
Here's what she means, by the way, about be critical of the sources, because I would actually tell her to do all of this because they don't do this. Um, when she says be critical of the sources, if you're in the cult, what she means is to engage in genetic fallacy. Genetic fallacy is a fallacy where you don't know how to present an argument against the evidence that's being presented or the argument that's being presented. You don't know how to do argumentation and to argue against it. So instead of contradicting or challenging or criticizing the evidence or the argument, you attack the source. That's a genetic fallacy. Genetic, like where it came from. And they do this all the time. So just like in their conversations, how they have conversation stoppers like check your privilege or don't mansplain to me or whatever. They do this with sources. They do genetic fallacy. If you give them a source, immediately they look to see if it's from Fox News. It's from Fox News. That means it's wrong. Like they don't even read it. They don't even look to see what the facts are. They're just immediately like genetic fallacy. Here we go. And that's why I try to find leftist sources to give them so they'll at least read it. So at least they can't cut it off with that conversation stopper. But that's what she's basically saying to do. Be critical. I know what she's saying. I was in this cult. Be critical of the sources. Like, look at the source and see if you can discredit it because of the source. Or even from people. Well, Keri Smith said that, and she's a known alt-right, right-wing Nazi troll, whatever they say I am, right? She's a known, bad person.
we would read stories, and I know I have some of my former students here and their families. Hi. We would learn about a historical event, and I would ask my students, who is missing from this story? This is not a concept or question that I invented, but it's something that I was taught as a way to decenter the Eurocentric and white voices that are often at the forefront of our history books and our media.
Okay, let's stop here. This is more of the woke talk, decentering whiteness. What does this mean? This means that they want to, first of all, it's racist. Once again, they're teaching children. She's teaching kindergartners how to look at everything through a racial lens. She's teaching children to look at the world and automatically assume it's racist and that it's set up to give white people privilege and that black people are oppressed and Latino people are oppressed and they don't have the special power that white people have. Like she's teaching this to kindergartners, which is sick. But what they're also doing here is they're trying to completely destroy history. They're trying to because they don't like the optics of Western culture and Western history. Well, I'm sorry. It was a lot of Europeans. Like what? That's just a fact. That's just a fact. This is why they take historical dramas and they remake them, but they race swap. They're like, it's centering whiteness. We need to recenter it. We need to make Benjamin Franklin black, okay? Like, what? But he wasn't. That shouldn't offend you that he wasn't. Why is that offensive? Okay, she's talking about brainwashing kindergartners here.
And so, in a time when misinformation is running wild and AI is on the rise, seek
Misinformation running wild. This is more projection. They push misinformation. They're in the middle of right now trying to push They're trying to brainwash the masses to think that there really wasn't an assassination attempt on Trump. That's what they're doing. Propaganda, misinformation.
Evidence and be a critical consumer of media and information before just sharing it out. Don't feed the trolls. You guys know I have trouble with this one sometimes, but we are all grown up children. Children seek good attention and bad attention. Trolls are the same. Sometimes walking away is the answer. But that being said, don't expect to get it right every time because we're going to get it wrong sometimes. I certainly do. I have and I will. And that is part of the process of learning and growing. So be ready for feedback and listen when you're corrected and model doing your best to repair harm that's done because
To repair harm. Cult language, more cult language.
a lot of the times being an ally means
Uh,
being willing to
being an ally, cult language. They don't have friends, these people. When you're in the woke cult, you don't have friends. You just have allies. And if you manage to leave the woke cult and you're gonna mourn, you're gonna be sad about all the friends you're losing. I'm telling you, once you get fully out of it, that you realize those were never friends. Those were allies. Those were people who shared your ideology with the semblance of friendship. But at the end of the day, they prioritized being an ally more than being your friend. If they were really a friend if they were really a friend, you could have a different belief system than them, and they would still be friendly with you. I still have a few woke friends. Very few, but I still have a few. And they know I think their ideology is evil. And they think I've joined some red pill cult, but we still like each other and love each other, and I'm still, I'm hoping one day they leave the cult. They do have questions sometimes, which is cool. That's a friend. But most in the woke world are not your friends, they're just your ally, and if you leave the cult, they're gonna do what cults do, which is they're gonna disown you, they're gonna try and smear you, they're gonna come after you because now you're an apostate. That's what most of them did to me, that's what every story I've ever interview I've ever done of someone who left the woke cult, they went through this great unfriending, and it's just their allies. They're shedding allies.
be uncomfortable. And no one is more uncomfy than someone talking to their
Oh!
bigoted family members. So, yeah,
Let me rewind this. I cannot stand this baby talk. This is a thing that white women are saying uncomfy now all the time. Have you heard this? I've heard a lot. Uncomfy, like a baby. The only person you should be saying, "Are you feeling uncomfy to?" is your dog. Like, because he can't learn English anyway. Don't even say it to your kid, because if you're saying it to your kid, they can learn English and they might start to say uncomfy, and you don't want that to happen. You should never say, "Are you feeling uncomfy?" to an adult or to a child, just possibly your dog.
comfortable. And no one is more uncomfy than someone talking to their bigoted family members. So, yes, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. No pun intended. Get it? Over half of the people, over half of white people, or almost half of white people voted for Donald Trump both times he ran for president.
Now, do you notice immediately she's saying that means they're all bigoted? She says your white family members are bigoted. Why? What is she equating it with in her very next breath? Because they voted for Donald Trump, that makes them a bigot. Okay.
So, someone that you need to talk to. Do it. Maybe don't hit them with a got it, or catch a bubble like I do in my skits. We can save that for when we are among friends, but trust me, they do not like it and it is not going to help you persuade them. But research tells us that personal conversations between friends or family members can be more persuasive than any online debate with a troll or even an advertisement run by a candidate. So remember, I said you are all influencers. However, if Kamala can use brat, I can say, let us touch grass, friends. Get off the internet because by talking to your families and friends and community members, you can inspire real change. So, I also want to conclude with this: don't lose hope and don't burn out. We need you and your heart. So, take care of yourself. And if somebody knows the broader origin of this concept, please tell me. But as told by the hungover pundit on Twitter, he says, A friend once shared what she called the parable of the choir. A choir can sing a beautiful note impossibly long because singers can individually drop out to breathe as necessary and the note goes on. Social justice activism should be like that.
There, she just told you what cult this is. Social justice activism. She named it. It is woke. It is social justice. It is identity Marxism. It is identitarianism. This is all communism. This is all a, and it's all a religion.
The fight for justice and equality is long and challenging, but every step forward counts. So stay committed, stay hopeful, and keep pushing for the changes that we need to see. Lean on each other, and especially the wisdom and leadership of BIPOC individuals and communities.
Especially the people of color shamans and their wisdom if they're people of color in the woke cult. Don't talk to any people of color outside of the woke cult. Oh man, there's something I saw a quote go by that I want this woman to move to Iraq. Yes. Uh she is wait a minute. I can't find it. Somebody is talking about the way she talks. Oh, here it is. Squat and P says, "Oh my gosh, she's such an abuser. I feel sorry for her husband. She probably talks to him like Jill talks to Joe." Yes, Squat and P. This method of speaking to you as if you're a child and as if she's intellectually and morally superior, it's gross. That's why I told you guys ahead of time, it's hard to watch it if you're not used to people talking to you this way. It's like you immediately you should bristle at this. It's condescending. And then Filippo Baggins also said great description, self-congratulatory. It's the self-congratulatory chuckle, the excitable hand gestures. Yes. Now I make a lot of excitable hand gestures as well. Maybe this is a woman thing, but the self-congratulatory chuckle, the excitable hand gestures, the fake smile. I do feel like her smile is very fake. The presumption that you have all the answers. Yes, it's a hard watch. Yes. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. That's why I'm like, it's like a predator smile a little bit. Um, the way of speaking, this cadence though, this this sort of a NPR therapeutic speaking to children from this place of knowing so much more and knowing better. That's this sort of gross mommy speak that a lot of them do. And she has it nailed perfectly. She's your mommy. She's your mommy teaching because you're just a dumb toddler. And the video I'm about to show you next is even worse.
Promote positive actions and allyship, and encourage your friends and followers to get involved, no matter how many or how few you have. And always ask who is missing from the stories you're being told and the stories that you're sharing, and inspire others and create a ripple effect for change. Thank you.
Thank you. And at the end, it's the baby talk. Thank you. It's the mommy talk and the baby talk. She's both. I'm just an innocent baby. I'm feeling uncomfy. I'm just an innocent baby. Like, gross. Okay, wait. John says, Keri, if you really want to see what I have for lunch that bad, just ask. LOL. John, get ready. Hold on to your cookies because this next one is even more disgusting. Now, this one is the same woman. Her name is Arielle Forder. And yes, she is some kind of influencer. She's like a white lady whisperer. She's a white woke lady whisperer. So she indoctrinates white ladies into the cult. I'm trying to get white ladies out of the cult. I'm trying to get everyone out of the cult. But she is the opposite. She's like, "Come on in, white ladies. Come on in. Nobody's going to feel uncomfy here. We just sit down, check your privilege, make sure you elevate the BIPOC voices around you. And this is uncomfy work, but we have to do it. Now, especially when you talk to your bigoted family members, like that, they do the upspeak too, which I hate. My husband, I'm sorry, I laughed right into the microphone. My husband's at the gym and I'm glad you're listening from the gym, babe. He says, I wish she was missing from every story. Yes, yes, Michelle from Force of Light is here and says it's, I don't know where that comment is now. Oh, Valley Girl Baby Talk, yeah. It's this weird mix. They sort of took Valley Girl and it evolved where they added Baby Talk to and Mommy Talk. It's this just sort of amalgam of NPR, kindergarten teacher speak, where they do upspeak at the end. It's really, yeah. So let's get into more of her talk. Now, this one really gonna make you vomit. This is the same woke white woman whisperer. It's a lot of alliteration. And this is kind of the content she puts out. And this is her talking about, remember when the government started saying we shouldn't be allowed to use gas stoves? She puts out content that presumably is talking to conservatives and trying to convince them to come over to her side of view, her point of view. But listen to the way she's talking. Now, I heard this and I immediately heard it. It's condescending. It's gross. It's incorrect, by the way. She's going to tell you that no government is trying to prevent you from owning a gas stove. And that's not true. I have the news articles pulled up right here. New York just became the first state that is banning natural gas stoves. So what she's saying is not even factually correct. But while she's sharing this false information, she's doing it in this very condescending, mommy talk way. And I just ask you, what is her purpose with this video? Is her real purpose to reach conservatives, or is it just to provide content for other people who are in this self-righteous little cult that she's in to laugh at and say, yeah, conservatives are fucking stupid? Like, sorry for the swear, but is that what it's for? And I'll be honest, I watched this and I thought, do I ever talk this way to leftists? And I don't think I talk this way. I think this is really extreme, but I know I sometimes come off as condescending to leftists and I don't mean to. And so watching this really helped me to evaluate myself more and try and keep this out of my speech. Um, as much as I can, because I do want leftists to watch, and by the grace of God, some have and have left that cult. And I don't ever want to talk to them in this condescending mommy voice way, and you're so stupid, that doesn't work. But anyway, let's watch this. Here she goes. Here she goes about gas stoves.
Macaroni cheese, everybody freeze. Uncle Don, no one wants to take your gas stove. No, friend, they just want you to know about your gas stove. Do you see how it says natural gas? Yeah, they just want to put a little warning sticker on your stove so that you know that it actually means methane gas. Yeah, the one making the world warmer. Yes, that is really happening. Can you catch a bubble, please? California has used stickers to warn people about chemicals for a long, long time, and the stickers are nothing to be afraid of. I promise. They just want people to know about the health impacts of burning gas so that we can be safer. Yeah, because people like me, I have asthma. I need to be careful around burning things. I know, I didn't know either. And that's why they're saying that there should be more information so people can learn about that. Nobody is coming to take your stove. Take a deep breath, please. Smell the flour, blow the soup. Yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to ask for either. Do you want to sign this paper with me? Okay, let's do it. Learning new things is great. I'm glad you're not scared anymore. Back to cooking, sure. Let's just turn on the range hood and crack a window, though. Macaroni cheese, everybody freeze.
Okay, this is it. This is it. This is the face of woke white women. It is disgusting, is it not? Is it not? Woo boy. I can't imagine what it's like being around this woman. I can't imagine what it's like being, if she's married, being her spouse. And I can't imagine what it's like being her kids. Even if you're a kid, you don't deserve to be spoken to this way. Like this is not how you talk to children even. This is so condescending. There's no love or joy in it. There's no respect in it. It's completely disrespectful. You're a stupid piece of trash on the floor that I'm gonna condescend to like you're retarded, and you know, and it's not even that, like, you're, again, children shouldn't be spoken to this way. people who are dumb should not be spoken to this way. It's that's just can we get her on the show, says Pirate. I don't know if I could take it. If I got her on the show, I'd have to talk like her. I'd be like, okay, we're gonna do something hard. Like, wow. Rasmix says, by age 3, I didn't respect people that talk like that. I know, it's so gross. Again, maybe the only person you should ever talk to this way is your dog. They're not people. It's a little bit funnier because you're kind of joking if you talk to your dog like that. But I don't it's not a healthy way to speak to anyone, even children. And somebody said oh, my husband says, is she from Fargo? We just watched Fargo, the classic. That movie's pretty old now. We just watched it. It was really funny. Um Why does Keri hate us so much, says Therese. Give it up for Therese, one of our mods. I don't. I just wanted you to see they're sending their best, okay? And Pirate Tomsky, give it up for Pirate. Our mod says, OMG, Keri, stop. Okay, I stopped it. It was quick. Can you imagine subscribing to her channel and getting a dose of that every day? That just sick, vile. It's like signing up for abuse. Here, I'm gonna subscribe so you can abuse me every day. Speak to me like I'm stupid and like you're better than me. And it's so hard to teach stupid people like me. That's the other thing about these abuse speak people is they talk as if they're saints, but not actual saints, because an actual saint wouldn't speak to you with such contempt and derision and condescension. They speak as these like phony saints of like, it's so hard educating all these dumb bigots in my family, but I'm doing it. I'm out here doing the work. Subscribe to my channel. It's just such a hard time. And I have to take me time. And, I really have to take that time to breathe when the rest of the chorus is singing because I have to take care of myself because it's just, you don't know how much I sacrifice to try and educate these ignorant white bigots in my family, okay? Like, poor martyr me. I give of myself. Gross. I know. Like I said, I tried to evaluate and say, have I ever spoken to leftists with that kind of contempt? And I'll be honest and say I probably have at some point. Not with that tone, though, I don't think. Not with that disgusting tone. I really don't think. If I ever do, you have my full permission to call me out and say, Keri, you're starting to sound like that crazy white lady in the woke. I don't want to talk that way, okay? But I'll say one thing I know I haven't done. I do not have some savior victim complex. Thank God. And I pray. I think that the prayers against ego help. Do prayers against ego because God will help, try and help you beat down your ego. I know I do not have that kind of like, woe is me. It's just so hard fighting back against my old woke cult and educating these leftist idiots. Like, send me money. I'm on my fainting couch because this work is so hard. And if you like, I've seen some of these anti-woke grifters who are like, pay my mortgage. They say it, pay my mortgage this month. Gross. I'm out here doing the work. The least you could do. Sorry. That's how she talks. If you subscribe to that channel, every day you get that narcissist in your inbox. This is so hard. Anyway, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. I'm done making fun of her. I'm done. ADL 1982 for $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel. Says if a Stepford wife gave birth to a child of the corn, what a great horror movie description. I appreciate it. I love both of those movies. I blame it on the White Claws, sisters. How many brain cells did we all lose today listening to her? Yeah, and somebody said, I think it was Michelle, or I can't find it. There's in the chat, but something scrolled by where they said, "Thank God they're so unlikable." They are very unlikable. I don't think it appeals to. I don't think that kind of condescension from woke white ladies. I don't think it appeals to people on the fence. It definitely doesn't appeal to thinking people. What it does do, though, let me think about this for a second. It solidifies it. I think it could and probably does solidify the conviction of people who are already in the cult. That's what that functions for. That's why you do content like that. Because back when I was in the woke world, if I saw something like that, this is why I know they have self-righteousness when they share that stuff too, is they're kind of getting off on like being one of the elite, being one of the smart, good white people. They get off on and they share that stuff for validation. They're like in the Bible, where it talks about the people who pray on street corners just to be seen praying. There's nothing wrong with praying on a street corner. There's nothing wrong with public prayer or public professions of faith. You should be overflowing, if I think, with love for God and want to share it with people. It took me a while to get there because at first I had so many years of indoctrination that when I found God, I was like embarrassed because I still had all that indoctrination that you shed slowly. So at first I was trying to keep God secret. Excuse me, but I was like, I don't want people, to dismiss me or to think whatever when they find out I'm a believer. And I got past that. And now it's sort of this place where I can't not talk about God. It's going to come up. Just it's my belief system. It's like for woke people how they see everything through the woke lens. Well, I can't help but see everything through my Christian lens. And so it will come up from time to time. My point being, it's not in the Bible. I don't read that as like, oh, you shouldn't pray in public. That's not what that is. People pray in public in the Bible all over the place. What that's saying is don't pray in public if the goal for doing such is to be seen praying in public, like to virtue signal. If that's why you're doing it, so that people see you doing it. That's a virtue signal. And so when people do videos like this woman, I think they're like the Pharisees. They're just virtue signals. She's not trying to like if you pray in public with sincere intent, you're trying to pray for blessings for the people you're praying over, perhaps, or you're praying for help for people, perhaps, or whatever the sincere reason for praying is there, right? This woman pretends like she's talking to conservatives in this video and wants to help them change their mind about gas stoves or whatever, but that's not really what she's doing. She's making this video to be seen making this video. She's not trying, there's no sincere attempt to change a conservative's mind with that video. This is why I say it's a virtue signal. It's the kind of thing they share so they can all pat themselves on the back and they can feel more secure in the cult they're in. This is a reinforcement video for existing cult members. That's all it is. It's a congratulatory a video for existing cult members. Like, yeah, we picked the right cult. These people are so stupid. They don't even know all the gas stoves, right? They're so dumb. Let's all laugh at them. By the way, she's wrong. As I mentioned, what's funny about that video is she's talking about that as if it's ludicrous that the government wants to tell us what kind of stoves we can buy. They do, lady. They also want to be able to turn off your power and your car remotely like that. They're pushing to a place where we don't have private property, but they're also pushing to a place where they have control over the property we do have. And if you think it's ludicrous that they want to tell us what kind of stoves we can have, well, let me remind you that many states have told us what kind of bags we can have at the supermarket. And Biden just told us what kind of light bulbs we can have. Wow, that's crazy, right, lady? She's like, oh, it's insane. They would never care what kind of stove you have. They care what kind of light bulbs in my chandelier. They said we can't have incandescent bulbs. They just banned it. And man, they were fast too, because I went to Home Depot the next day and was like, I'm going to buy out all the incandescent bulbs. Fortunately, I had been stockpiling some already, but I didn't have quite enough. And I went and they had already taken them off the shelves immediately. LED only, lady. Look at this. New York. New York becomes the first state to ban natural gas stoves and furnaces in most new buildings. So they are banning it in the leftist states, in the blue states. And they would love to do this federally. So everything you're even saying in that video is a false premise. All of your condescension and your moral superiority and your intellectual superiority, you're laying it on top of something that's not even true. you have all this unearned intellectual superiority, unearned moral superiority. That's the grossest kind. I can forgive it in people who actually are smarter than me. It's like I get, or know more than me. It's more forgivable. But when it's an ignorant person with that level of arrogance, it's really hard to forgive. Those two things together, ignorance and arrogance, are really hard to forgive. You know, when they arrive together. Ignorance by itself, much easier to forgive. Arrogance by itself, much easier to forgive. But the two together, I'm like, like, no. So, yeah, it's gross. Okay. Southern Belle for $2. Hey, lady. She says her campaign is using groups to call it grassroots. Oh, yeah. Kamala, they're calling it all of those self-segregated video calls. They're calling them grassroots. It's all being organized. Grassroots, right? Eric Heffelfinger, what a great last name. Heffelfinger for $10. Thanks for supporting the channel. Says every politician is qualified on paper. Bush, Hillary, Biden are political dynasties. And I think after decades of failure, the qualified argument that they're going to make is meaningless. Oh, yeah, of course. I have a bunch of stuff pulled up on Kamala. We've already gone 2 hours a day, so I'm going to save it. I'm not sure yet. I will announce on the channel, but I might be doing more frequent streams during this election season because there's a lot I want to talk about. There's a lot that's happening and a lot to dispel. So I do have a lot pulled up on Kamala where we can go over the content of the things she says. And if you look at it, there's not a lot of substance there. She engages in the very definition of word salad, where she just says a string of words together. And when you look at it, you're like, wait, what is she saying here? She's not saying anything here. Oh, okay. It's a like brain candy or something. Empty calories for the brain. I'll fight you naked for $2. Thank you so much. Says ladies like this want to be fake graped. Oh, like that woman. I don't trust anybody in that cult not to make fake accusations of any kind, to be quite frank. Because, like I said, being in that cult for a long time, it changes you and you become a person who engages in evil and bad things. You become a person who practices racism, even if you didn't start off that way. And over time, you will become, if you stay in a long time, a person who lies, even if you didn't lie before. Like, it changes you being in that woke cult for so long. Hey, Vets Talkin'. You guys go check out Adam at Vets Talkin'. I've got an interview with him here on Deprogrammed. And I've been on their show. It's a show for vets hanging around talking about news, pop culture. They have different shows on their channel. Good to see you. He says, I just want to tell you, I won the best bet ever with my Carlo when Biden dropped out. Not that I want to brag or encourage people to watch when we're on each other's shows. For him to have to honor the bet. Love y'alls. Oh, well, everybody should go check it out. I didn't know that he bet you that, but and I haven't been able to see it yet, but I know Mikey was on your show and I do want to watch. So go check out Vets Talking. And thank you, Adam. Some of the funny comments I saw in the chat, Jody Humphrey said, I would not invite this woman to Thanksgiving. No, because Jody, when I was in that cult, I used to read and share the disgusting articles that they would write every holiday, including Thanksgiving. They would write, in our woke cult, they would write disgusting articles about how to talk to your grandfather at Thanksgiving about his white supremacy, like really gross stuff like that. Just assuming that your grandfather is a part of white supremacy. Why? Because he's a man. Therefore, he must have male privilege. And because he's white, therefore, he must have white privilege. He's one of the worst oppressors. They try to suck all the joy and all the meaning out of things like Thanksgiving and pervert it and turn it into these social justice indoctrination ceremonies with your family. Like, join our cult, Grandpa. Chrysanth says, this is really tough to watch and listen to. I feel like I'm being told to share my animal crackers with the kid who just punched me. Yeah. Yeah, she definitely speaks to you like you're a dumb kid. But I don't think you should even talk to a dumb kid like that. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. And then I think we have to see if I'm able to do this because I've got to stain. I finished staining the top balcony, and now I've got to stain the porch down here. So anyway, with our renovation schedule, if I can, I might be back sooner than Wednesday. If not, our next scheduled show is Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central. We're doing That Christian Panel. We're going to be talking about the movie that's in theaters. It's an Angel Studios film, and it's called Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. So that's a good excuse for you to go have a date night with your honey, or take the family out, or go with friends, or have a night alone. And you could even take your knitting to the movie theater and knit. Back when I used to knit a lot, when 10 years or so ago, I would knit in the movies. So you could do that and have a good night. Your Average Patriot Nerd gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for being a little fairy. And Michael Collier for $4.99. Another great stream. We need to get you on Rogan and Megyn Kelly. You guys, I would love to be on either of those shows. If Rogan wrote me a message a few years ago that he read and enjoyed one of my essays. And I actually met him years before when I was in the woke cult, because I used to represent comedians, and I had a couple of comedians who were on his show. So I met him in my old life. Isn't that weird? Um, but yeah, I would love to. I would love to be on his show. Obviously, who wouldn't like to talk to him about stuff in the world? And Megyn Kelly, the more I watch of her, the more I like her. I know my friend, she did a great interview with my friend Joseph. Anyway, the point is, if there's a show that you think that you would like to see me on, please hit them up and tell them, hey, you should have this person as a guest, because that helps me. Because a lot of times when you cold reach out to, I haven't reached out to Rogan, but if I did, like, it's like if you're cold reaching out, and they haven't heard of you yet, it's harder. So if you do want to help me, go tell them, hey, you should talk to this person, and here's why. If you're so inclined, I would love that. Okay, I think that's it. Oh wait, I wanted to show you this one thing. So my friend, little ragamuffin, I have one of the first interviews here on my new channel on Deprogrammed was with her and a few of the knitters who got canceled in the woke knitting wars. Little Ragamuffin is a seamstress, and she went through a cancellation and came out stronger on the other side. She had a sewing pattern for Western men's shirt that was called the Good Old Boy, and they tried to cancel her. And to this day, they still stalk and harass her and call her all kinds of names because she called the pattern the Good Old Boy. Anyway, she is an excellent human. And she has, I'm trying to find this so I can put it up on the screen. She has a really cool convention coming up. It's a retreat. It's a knitting retreat. It's going to be happening in Nashville. Not knitting, sorry, sewing. It's a sewing retreat happening in Nashville. Sewing and other crafting. Here it is. I found it. Okay, let's put this on the screen. This is at the end of August. So any of you folks in Nashville, or if you want to travel for this, it's the Social Club. I love puns. It's social, SEW. And it's the Social Club retreat. It's happening in Nashville, August 29th through September 1st. There's an Eventbrite link. I will put it in the description of this video. I'll also drop it in the chat, and you can get more information there. And I know they have vendors. I think they're still looking for other vendors, and you can fill out these forms. You can book rooms and get discounts through this link. And it's 3 days of sewing lessons and craft lessons and just a whole bunch of fun with other based crafters. Oh, thank you, Pirate. He put the link up. Cool. Okay, there you go. KB, thanks, Keri. I always learn so much about the crazy woke world from your streams. Good. I hope that it helps. My first goal is to like help people leave woke. But my secondary goal is to help people who know woke people be able to understand what they're saying better, so you can have the conversations if they will talk to you and counter what they're saying and understand that religion better. So that makes me very happy. Thank you. Okay. We're going to take off. Have a good rest of your Monday, folks. And I will see you on Wednesday, maybe sooner, but definitely Wednesday, 6:00, that Christian panel here on Deprogrammed. We're talking about the movie Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. So go see it in theaters if you don't want to be spoiled with our discussion. Okay, see you guys later. Bye.